It is time for my favourite part of the week, and that's when we get to delve into local history. And there's only one person we'll do that with, and that is from historyouthere.com, and that is, of course, Harold Peacock. Very good morning, mate.
Yes, good morning, Damo. I'm up in Townsville. You sent me on assignment, and I'm tracking down some persons of interest in this really interesting story.
Yes, I noticed that. Now, we're going to take people back to 1865. It's Ruthven Street in beautiful downtown Toowoomba, but a rather unsavoury act happened.
Yes, and that unsavoury act is still unsolved today. It was on the evening of Monday, the 19th of July, 1865, shortly after 8 o'clock at night. The body of a female was discovered in Ruthven Street in Toowoomba. Now, the corpse was so warm that she could not have been dead for long. Her shawl was drawn tightly around her throat, suggesting that she died from strangulation. Now, the murder victim was Mrs. Margaret Curtis, 28 years old and wife of a carrier residing in the south end of James Street, which back then was on the edge of town. Now, she was a mother of two children, one only 3 weeks and the other nearly 2 years of age. It was a tragedy that just grabbed the attention of the whole colony. Vague descriptions of a man harassing other women that night proliferated as that of being the murderer. Now, descriptions were as general as someone with dark whiskers. Could have been anyone. Another was that he was a short, stout-looking man and his clothes were dark. Now, it was a dark night and no one actually saw his face. Now, immediately the next morning, Toowoomba's Sub-Inspector of Police, Jeremiah Foran, and several townsmen formed a posse and started off over the range towards Ipswich in pursuit of a man seen leaving late the previous night. Now, the supposed murderer was described as about 5'7" tall, black whiskers and a moustache. He was wearing a black or brown hat, which he pulled down over his face, a black short coat or vest buttoned up the chin, and black trousers. Now, the murder was almost immediately raised in Parliament. A detective and 6 constables were sent to Toowoomba to help the local police and the private vigilantes. The government even offered a reward of £100, the apprehension of the murderer. Now, Damo, the result was predictable, and arrests were made all over the colony of men only vaguely answering the descriptions at all, which, quite frankly, could have been anyone. Now, not one, but 2 persons were arrested on the same day by Ipswich's Constable John Elliott. And, of course, he was eager to get the reward. Now, both of these men were apprehended in Ipswich in consequence of answering the description given, and both were actually charged with the murder. Now, one was arrested in the morning. He was William Barber, but he wasn't even in Toowoomba at the time of the murder.
What?
The other was arrested in the afternoon. He was James Malcolm Munro, who wasn't in Toowoomba at that time either. Now, he was a 25-year-old lithographer who got into a fight at Condamine and was released from Toowoomba jail shortly before the murder, and that's probably why he was picked up. His clothes included a grey tweed coat and trousers, which didn't even match the description anyway. Then there was Sergeant Dennis McCarthy of the Brisbane Police. He also got into the act. He tracked for 100 miles to Wivenhoe a man called Daniel Edwards. Now, Constable McCarthy said that the man answered the description of the murderer with the exception of the height and having no moustache. Now, the height of the prisoner was about 6 feet tall, and the height of the murderer was only 5'7". So Edwards, like the others, was immediately discharged. Then there was Mr. Pierce Grace. Now, he was a blacksmith from Toowoomba who was married with 4 children, a very respectful man, just like yourself, Damo, and the last who would be suspected of any criminal act. He was arrested in Dalby and charged with the murder. Now, Grace was considerably taller than the suspect, and the only reason for his arrest was that he was wearing black clothes and had recently left Toowoomba.
Right.
So this was a dangerous time for anyone to be wearing anything other than white, because there was a very strong possibility of being charged with the Ruthven Street murder. Now, arrests continued. Even 2 years later, Toowoomba's Sergeant Michael McKinnon arrested a German by the name of Gottfried Wilbrecht. He was charged with murder, but there was no evidence at all to support the charge. At the same time, a Michael Ford was arrested in Roma. He too was discharged, but apparently a deal was done. He might have even known something because he was engaged as a professional police informer.
Oh.
Look, in any case, the Ruthven Street murder remains unsolved today, and the £100 is still there up for grabs.
Right.
So, look, there's a lot more to the story, Damo, which I'll tell you about next week when I look at some suspects who were never charged.
And you're looking for persons of interest in Townsville today?
Yes, I have been, and I will continue to be. But I'm going to have to say that because there's some fact checking that's got to be done. But there's a lot more to this story to tell you about.
I wonder who done it.
Well, we'll find out, and there's £100 up for grabs. I'll buy you coffee.
Fair enough, mate. Listen, another great story. Now, you're going to post this one up on your website?
Absolutely. You can go to all the socials, History Out There on the socials, or my website, historyouthere.com.
All right, historyouthere.com, mate. Always good to chat. You take care up there in Townsville. And
I will, and I'll steer clear of any suspects that I may encounter.
That's right. Don't find yourself in a dark alleyway, all right?
I won't be wearing black either.
Mate, you have a great week, and we'll talk again next week.
Certainly will.
There we go, historyouthere.com, and Harold Peacock with some local history. It's an interesting tale, isn't it? We'll take a break, back with our birthdays.